Oh yeah, new firmware. Stupid. It's better than Sony, you fucking idiots. Tell me in the comments if that feels familiar. You get a product or you get like a firmware update or a promise of something exceptional, and then you go ahead and you buy the product or you do X firmware and it doesn't meet your expectations and it frustrates you more than anything. That's kind of what this video is about. It's gonna be a little bit personal, a little bit different. But here's the thing. So my frustrations was while I was filming the wavelength video, the last video that went on the channel, and I was trying to get the product up to the screen and autofocus was failing me terribly. And I've seen a ton of YouTubers being like, oh, like it's better than Sony now. Some of you people might be nice people, but respectfully, shut the up. That sentiment might be a little bit harsh, but here's the thing. I have been fleeced by YouTubers. Okay, so I have bought products based on YouTube recommendations, and I'm gonna get to more of that later, but it's really frustrating. So let's talk about the big controversy at the moment on YouTube, which is Gerald Undone addressing creators that went to a Lumix event for their new Panasonic S9 camera, addressing the brand specifically and how they treated him. And it's kind of coinciding with something personal for me, this channel. So obviously, I'm over 1,000 subs, I have 4,000 watch hours, and I'm being monetized. So this channel does make money, but the amount of money it makes is not fantastic. I'm gonna get to that in a little bit. So I'm probably going to take brand deals. And let me be clear before I get into this, that everything I'm telling you right now is for you, the audience, okay? I wanna make this abundantly clear that my goal with this channel is to provide deep dive tech-related product reviews, and if I do a sponsorship, but I wanna be transparent with you and authentic with you. Like, I don't wanna sell you something that's crap, okay? So like, if I get a product from a brand for review, I wanna make sure that it's actually good and I stand behind it, and it has, I guess, I don't know, the Tech Mixer seal of approval, if that makes sense. But there's this subsection of the internet that kind of drives me a little crazy, and it's always the commenters, and they probably represent the minority, but they basically vilify this idea that you can make money online. So like when, say, Linus Tech Tips does a sponsor read, and suddenly he's a shill, you know, and if Gerald Undone happens to use Sony because he has a better relationship with Sony and they've been better to him, as he was saying in that video, there's this notion that everybody on YouTube with a camera getting, you know, any kind of payment for their work is a problem. I mean, I'm gonna bring you behind the fourth wall. I think that's the terminology. So look at my basement. This is embarrassing, just heads up. This was the result of the Wavelength review. Okay, so Wavelength, in the last video I did, Wavelength sent a product over for review. They watched one of my older videos and they really liked what I did. And they realized that my network at my house was capable of handling the speeds that their product offered. So it's a unique product, you know, it's a USB-C hub and it offers 2.5 gigabit, which you don't typically see. And I was very intrigued by it. It was the very first time a brand reached out to me and said, hey, like, we want to send you a product for review, not a sponsorship. Let me be abundantly clear about this. Okay, so they didn't get to preview that video before I finished it. I actually published it and then I sent them the link. And I really liked that product. And they're not paying me to say that. I hate that I have to keep saying that they didn't give me any monetary compensation, blah, blah, blah. Because the real is, I want to be authentic with you. So I spent a good amount of time cleaning up the basement and I actually filmed it. So if you're looking at this right now and you're watching it and going like, wow, that's a hot mess. Yeah, it was a hot mess. And I got the product and I had a lot of questions, like stuff that I never seen other YouTubers like talk about, like what happens if you reverse engineer the USB-C port to USB-A? That's not something Wavelength recommends, but I was like, YOLO, let's go, let's do it. And I did all that, and I kind of trashed the basement in the process because I also have like motion control units, like this slider that's beside me right here. And I wanted to create cool B-roll, and I wanted to create all this stuff. Look, the product costs like, at the time of recording this, I feel like the product's like 40 bucks US. Look, I'm not even a drop in the pond in this YouTube space, okay? But in my head, that $40 USB-C hub from a brand, to me, and at my scale, is the equivalent of Marquez Brownlee reviewing the Vision Pro. And I spent a lot of time learning stuff, fixing stuff, like the slider I'm using right now, I had to fix it in the midst of that. Also, unbeknownst to a lot of you, I had a family emergency a few weeks ago. And the video was actually supposed to come out like a few weeks ago, but then obviously that derailed things. Family always first, of course. And I got to it. But if you look around the room for a second, okay, so, you know, looking around the room, you're gonna see a lot of products. On my top left, you're right, I'm gonna pop up how much YouTube has paid me, how much money TechMixer has actually made me since I got monetized in, what was it, 2022, 2023? Beginning of 2023. That doesn't even cover the 2 memory cards that I used for these 2 cameras, and I don't know, the ND filter that's on camera A right here, okay? So like, let me be clear. I'm also not a professional videographer. In fact, like, if you didn't know, I'm a DJ, or I was a DJ. Like, I'm like semi-retired right now. But I do have a day job that I absolutely love. But all the money that I spent on all of this equipment, not to mention the sweat equity, okay? Like, at the time of recording this, that wavelength video monetized, I think I've made like $3.50 Canadian. I don't need to do the math on how many hours I spent on that video and all the knowledge I had to like pick up, and I'm still learning to make that video somewhat decent quality. I'm actually really proud of the quality of that video, I'm not gonna lie. So this video is like a pledge to you, okay? And I wanna make this abundantly clear that it's gonna make it harder on me to make a lot of money, okay? Because there are people who outright lie. They don't disclose their sponsorships, and they just outright give terrible misinformation. And I think that's awful. So here's my pledge to you. And the brands aren't gonna like this, but you know what? We're in a phase of product review where you, the consumer, deserve, number one, you deserve to have proper information given to you, good and bad. You know, also, we're in a place of, you know, transparency, the authentic internet. I'm actually quite excited about that, the authentic internet. So this is my pledge to you. I have to take a sponsorship, okay? Like that, if I want this to go anywhere, I'm being real with you, I have to take it. But if a brand wants me to review a product for them as just a straight unbiased review, okay, it will just be called a review. If it's a showcase sponsorship, it will be listed in the description. But here's the thing, the title and description. Here's the thing though. I believe that if the company really truly believes in their product, they will let me receive said product, conduct my own personal review, okay? Not something I film, not something that ends up anywhere. Upon me feeling like I can stand behind the company and the product, after that review, I will accept the sponsorship. Because, fun fact, a lot of the stuff in the basement is crap, okay? There's stuff that's really good, and there's stuff that's really bad that I got fleeced as an aspiring content creator. I have spent, like, okay, right there, I'm holding a Moses SlidePod tripod. Let me just say this now. To all the people who said the Moses stuff was good, that said, oh, they endorsed the SlidePod and the gimbal, F you guys. Because here's the thing, I spent something like 800 bucks Canadian on the slider, and like another, I wanna say 900 or 1,000 bucks on the gimbal. And they're terrible. The app disconnects constantly. The slider constantly moves, even if you have it on the most secure tripod. Like, I would never want you, I don't want you, the viewer, to watch one of my videos and I endorse something and then you go spend your hard-earned money, which, by the way, in today's economy, is not the easiest to come by. But I wouldn't ever want you to watch my channel and then feel like you got ripped off because I recommended something. That is brutal. In fact, I could probably even sell the slider and the gimbal for like 300 bucks. You know, take a super L on it. And yet I would still feel bad that somebody actually paid money for that crap. So no, I'm not gonna shill and tell you guys, like, I'm gonna make mistakes. I'm a human being, okay? Like, I'm not gonna sit there and say like, oh, well, you know, my integrity is infallible. That's not what I'm getting at. But I am gonna say that what bothers me about the industry as a whole is that there are bad actors that don't disclose. And there are people who don't realize the sweat equity that goes into it. So like, this is like all the angles. So again, sweat equity and people who don't appreciate that, that's the audience, okay? The bad actors who don't disclose sponsorships and are not exactly the most forthcoming with their integrity, okay, those are some of the creators, right? And then you got the brands who, look, let's be honest, a business is a business is a business. They're just trying to sell product. They're just trying to make money. And I get it. But I think that leveraging creators that are willing to be honest and brands that aren't going to be sensitive about everything. Looking at you, Panasonic, because I've heard other stories too outside of what Gerald mentioned in his video. You know, brands like that, or even Insta360 that iPhone fairly recently mentioned, wanted creators to not disclose sponsorships, you know, and actually act like it's like a glowing review, even though it's a paid sponsorship. These brands are bad actors. They make it hard on everybody. And then there's this premise of like, well, if I don't get the product first, then I won't be first to the race. Let me give you a little insight on that. There was an embargo on the pre-release version of the Panasonic firmware, okay? So there were creators everywhere that were putting up videos, and I got excited, okay? Because look, I own the camera. I bought 2 of these cameras with my own money. I got excited about the firmware, and I said, okay, cool. This is like a game changer, and I hate that term, but it's a game changer in terms of like the way the autofocus is. And yet it wasn't. So when the firmware released to the public, I got it around, I want to say like 12 noon that day. And then I rushed to do a comparison. It wasn't the best comparison. Okay, I'm still new at this camera thing. I'm like, this shot might be overexposed. I'm shooting in Vlog. I've got an ND on here. I got a CPL on there. I don't know. But anyway, I rushed to do that comparison. And it got at the time, I think it's sitting at like 5,000 views, which is really high for a very small YouTuber, and B, somebody who's not just small, but is not part of this camera community, okay? Like, I have no authority on the subject, but because I put some work into it and I tried to be as authentic as possible, it didn't matter. So I don't think being the first in a lot of cases is actually gonna matter. Maybe for like a Marquez Brownlee or possibly a Linus or Unbox Therapy, sure, you know, I can see that being a thing, but like if my video, as somebody who's not in that space, not part of that community officially anyway, if that video can perform and it wasn't part of the pre-release hype machine that was going around about that firmware, I think it's okay. And I kind of get where Gerald was coming from. I was of the mind that because I don't get seeded products and I don't get pre-release stuff and I'm not part of that space, that I'm never gonna make it. But I really am starting to turn around to this idea that if you're just good at what you do and you just try to put your best into it and make good content, it will work, and it will take time, but you'll get there. What my whole point of this video is like, look, I'm gonna take sponsorships, and that's okay. Because if you look at the amount of work it took just to clean the room, don't even ask me how long that video took for wavelength. So let me be transparent with you about something else. One of the problems I ran up on in using all of this motion equipment was the tripod. Because I've wasted money on tripods that were terrible. And right now I'm gonna look at this camera. It's sitting on a tripod. I'm not gonna tell you what the tripod is. It's a really good tripod. And I paid for it with my own money, but I am so impressed with this tripod for how stable it is and how much leverage and utility it's been giving me that I've actually reached out to the brand to sponsor a video about these motion control systems, where all the motion control stuff like the gimbals and the sliders and the Edochrome stuff, I paid for with my own money. And yet I would sponsor it by the tripod company because, and let me be abundantly clear about this, I believe in the tripod. I believe in the quality of it. I'm floored that it's this stable. And at the price point that it's offered at, it's fantastic. It was that or buy like some expensive Manfrotto that's more than 3 times the price. And if you're a new content creator that needs a good utility tripod, I love this thing. The brand hasn't even answered me yet, so I'm not being paid to say any of this. My point is that if I'm gonna take a sponsorship, I'm pledging to you, the audience. I'm going to do my absolute best to be the most authentic and real with you. And unfortunately, that may be at a detriment to my wallet, but I think long-term, for the purposes of the channel, for the purposes of your buying decisions, I think that that's the way to go. And I'm really sorry if this comes off as a big virtue signal, but I wanna make this video so I don't have to keep saying it, okay? I feel like I'll probably link to this video in future videos when the comments start rising up about sponsorships as I accept them. But again, I'm gonna be very discerning, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it'll be like the Tech Mixer badge of honor or seal of approval, or I don't know, comment below on what I should call it. For all of those who are ragging on Gerald, I want to give a personal message because I don't know Gerald, okay? Like, I've never met him. He does live within like 3 hours of me, 2 or 3 hours of me. Those who are criticizing you aren't behind the wheel. I saw a few comments where people were like, oh, well, you're a polarizing figure in that space and you made these other YouTubers feel bad. That wasn't his intention. He wasn't trying to like put down other YouTubers. He was trying to say that the Lumix as a brand, seemingly based on the fact that they didn't send him or Caleb Pike or Patrick Tomaso to Japan for the S9 launch. The creators I just named, and including Gerald, are very well known for being extremely technical. And the downsides of the S9 are things that Gerald will point out, and Caleb Pike and Patrick Tomaso, they're all gonna point out. If you send creators that aren't willing to point that out, what does that say about you as a creator from a perception standpoint? That's not to say that those creators are bad people, okay? But again, I'm gonna go back to this S5 firmware thing, this S5 II firmware thing, where I saw a lot of videos where people were like, oh, it's better than Sony now. I don't even know if I'm in focus right now, but wow, that was extremely misleading. And if I'm being honest, it me the off. Respectfully, I'm gonna say this. If you're an audience participant watching content and you feel like content creators shouldn't be paid for their work, or if you're a brand that uses content creators to mislead potential customers because your product is not up to par, and if you're one of those creators even who doesn't disclose properly and, you know, tries to pull a fast one on the viewers, it's not my job to give you the advice that you should be taking. As a matter of fact, I'm just gonna let the gentleman on the back of this sweater give you the advice that you need to follow. My name is Sean. This has been Tech Mixer, and I'm out.